This movie is outrageously, offensively bad. You could make a case that it's like the worst film ever made. Well, despite what my critics may claim, I think I am actually a good dad. I love my kids. I make sacrifices for them. I sometimes even subject myself to unspeakable tortures for their sake. And that's what I did over the weekend when I took some of the kids to go see the 20th anniversary re-release of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith in theaters. I hadn't seen the film since it first came out. And my initial experience with the movie was such that I had no desire to ever experience it again, but I didn't count on one day having children of my own who somehow would become diehard Star Wars fans. I don't know how this happened. I'm not a Star Wars fan. I didn't pass this fandom down to them. I don't come from a Star Wars family. My own dad was not a Star Wars fan. He was more of a Star Trek guy. That never really clicked with me either. I have no affinity for any sci-fi franchise with the word star in the title. I am, however, a fan of the actual stars. You know, why watch Star Wars when you can look up at the stars at night and see the great cosmic pageant that God himself has written, produced, and directed for us? That's what I've tried to tell my kids to no avail. I gave this speech to my son once, and he said, yeah, but God didn't make lightsabers. And I said, okay, good point, but don't talk back. You're grounded. And in any case, whether through some sort of genetic anomaly or more likely through pro-Star Wars brainwashing from their mother, who my kids are now Star Wars fans, and they really wanted to see the third film in the prequel series in theaters, which has just been re-released, and so I agreed. And after suffering again through the entire 9-hour runtime, or what felt like it, I can confidently say that Revenge of the Sith is even worse than I remember, like a lot worse. I remember it as a boring, miserable film, but I guess I had blocked out many of the details, subconsciously attempting to save myself from reliving the trauma. This movie is outrageously, offensively bad. You could, and I'm not saying this for effect. You could make a case that it's like the worst film ever made. And sad to say, it's competing with more than one other Star Wars title for the top of that list. Everything about it is bad, except the score. The score is pretty good, but not enough to rescue the film. If John Williams made a score for a video of a dog taking a dump, it would be slightly more entertaining than it would have been without the score, but it would still be a dog taking a dump. And this film is the cinematic equivalent of that. First of all, as many people have pointed out over the years, but I must reiterate, the dialogue is atrocious. George Lucas, it would seem, has never heard humans speak. He writes dialogue like I imagine an alien would write dialogue if the only thing he knew about the human race he learned by watching daytime soap operas. There is not one moment where the script reaches even like a C grade. It is the worst dialogue I've ever heard in a mainstream Hollywood film. It is shockingly bad. Last summer, my kids used one of our phones to make a movie, as they called it, where they pretended to be pirates or something. And the dialogue in their 3-minute pirate movie was better than anything George Lucas came up with. So just to give one infamous example, in a scene early in the film, Anakin, played with the charisma of a metal folding chair by Hayden Christensen, goes up to Padme, played by Natalie Portman, and says, "You're so beautiful." And then Padme responds, "That's because I'm so in love." To which Anakin says, "No. It's because I'm so in love with you." That is actual dialogue in this movie. It commits every sin of bad script writing. It is clunky. It's on the nose. It doesn't sound natural at all. Humans do not speak this way. Even humans in galaxies far, far away, unless they're living on planet Cheeseball in the lame dork galaxy. This is not how humans or any other species of sentient life forms speak or would speak. One of the most basic principles also of script writing is to show, don't tell. This is script writing 101. The absolute worst way to convey a character's emotions is to just have him say it. So a clever writer, or even just a professional one, knows how to bring us into the character's mind without having him broadcast it. And so if you're telling us if you're trying to tell us that Anakin thinks Padme is beautiful and Padme is so in love, there are like a million different scenes that any decently creative and literate person could come up with that get that message across. Instead, George Lucas just writes on the page, and then Anakin says, "You're beautiful." And Padme says, "I'm so in love." And Anakin says, "No, I'm in love." And Padme says, "No, I'm in love." And then they kiss. And then after they kiss, they both say at the same time, "I'm in love." And this way, the audience will understand that they're in love. I mean, that's literally how the script was probably written. It was written like somebody was transcribing the off-the-cuff ramblings of a 5-year-old. The entire movie is like this. There is not one line of dialogue that sounds authentic, much less clever. And to make matters worse, the acting is uniformly bad, in some cases grotesquely bad. Now, granted, the actors were given the impossible task of delivering George Lucas dialogue, which is the modern film industry equivalent of like pulling the sword from the stone. There may be some actor out there in the world who can make this crap sound good, but he's never stepped forward. His existence is only a legend. Maybe Daniel Day-Lewis could do it. I'm not sure, but I do know that Hayden Christensen can't. Neither can Natalie Portman, Ewan McGregor, Samuel L. Jackson, who are all terrible in this film. Even R2-D2's performance fell flat and uninspired. Reportedly, I read this, that George Lucas wanted to cast Tupac in the role that ultimately went to Samuel L. Jackson, which makes Tupac's death perhaps a blessing in disguise. At least he was saved from the embarrassment of being in this movie. So we've established that the acting and dialogue were terrible. Many apologists for the film, and I've heard this in just since yesterday because I tweeted about this, and a lot of people were very upset, as you would expect, that I thought the movie was bad. But what I found is that a lot of people were conceding both points, but then claiming that the movie is still good. Now, of course, saying that a movie has bad acting and bad dialogue, but is still good, is like if you ask someone their opinion of the local Italian joint and they say, well, the customer service is terrible and the food tastes bad, but overall, it's actually a great restaurant. By definition, it cannot be a great food service establishment if it fails in the areas of both food and service. And a film cannot be good if it's poorly written and poorly performed. What's left to make it good? What could possibly rescue a film if both the guy who wrote it and the guys who acted in it have failed in their jobs? In a world that constantly challenges our values, now is a time to stand tall and boldly proclaim the truth. This is your moment, your opportunity to come together with top leaders from education, faith, media, and culture who are committed to making a difference. Our high-profile feature speakers, such as myself, Michael Knowles, Harrison Butker, Kirk Cameron, and Father Mike Schmitz, will share their powerful stories and insights on how to rise above fear and take a stand for the truth, no matter the cost. You'll be empowered to fearlessly stand up for your values and beliefs, knowing that you're called for such a time as this. It's going to be a great night filled with VIP parties, photo ops, meet and greets, and a call to action that will leave you inspired. It is more than an event. It's a call to action. Together, we'll ignite the courage needed to transform our culture and bring light into the darkness. Will you answer the call? All proceeds benefits furthering the mission of Courage Under Fire and Regina Coeli Academy to change our culture through education, the arts, law, and the pro-life cause. Regina Coeli Academy is the largest and only nationally accredited classical homeschool hybrid with 23 locations and counting across the country. To learn more about Regina Coeli Academy and the gala, head over to courageunderfiregala.org. That's courageunderfiregala.org. Use code IGNITE10 to receive 10% off your ticket today. Hurry, tickets are selling fast. Now, you might want to say, well, the acting sucks and the script sucks, but at least the action is good. I would submit that a poorly written and poorly performed film with good action is still on balance a bad film. But as it happens, this movie doesn't have good action scenes. The action scenes are long and busy and lots of things happen in them, but they are not good. I mean, the fight choreography is terrible. It's clumsy and nonsensical and uninspired. Many of the Jedis who are supposed to be like intergalactic ninjas, like the Karate Kids of the cosmos or whatever, have shockingly bad reflexes. I mean, Revenge of the Sith features some of the slowest fight scenes I've ever seen. There's a scene where Emperor Ovaltine, or whatever his name is who I guess is not an emperor yet in this, but he fights off a group of Jedis who came to apprehend him. And the actor who played Ovaltine was in his mid-60s, and he moves like it. And yet, despite swinging the lightsaber with all the speed and vigor of a retiree playing softball, he still easily dispatches like multiple Jedi warriors who are supposed to be, the greatest warriors in the universe. And in just with a casual, flick of the lightsaber, they're dead. That's it. And the fight scenes are also funny because they use stunt doubles or CGI to have the Jedis do flips and random like midair 360 corkscrews like Simone Biles for no obvious strategic reason. But for the rest of the time, they have the actual actors, I guess, doing the moves. So we're treated to the spectacle of fighters who can jump and flip like Olympic gymnasts, but when they're not jumping, they move like these clumsy old dudes. So the action isn't good, script isn't good, acting isn't good. What's left? The story? Can we possibly say that although the acting is bad, the dialogue's bad, the action's bad, at least the story was good? Well, no, we can't, because unfortunately, This ship hit multiple massive narrative icebergs so that by the end of the thing, the thing was so riddled with holes that it could just barely stay afloat. So let me give you just two examples, both from the end of the movie. In the climactic battle sequence between Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi, which takes place on a lava planet for some reason. I don't remember why they went to a lava planet. Maybe there was a good reason. Okay. Why would anyone go to a lava planet? If there are thousands of planets and you can go to any of them faster than the speed of light, why would you ever choose the lava planet for any activity? What possible activity why would you ever go to it? Why would anything ever happen on? Is it because Anakin was evil? So when you turn evil, you suddenly develop an affinity for lava? Yeah, that is it. That's George Lucas's writing for you. Well, he's evil, so he must like lava. Anyway, so they were on the lava planet fighting, and they were leaping from one piece of floating debris to the next, because that's how it works, right? Never mind the fact that if you jumped onto a piece of metal that was floating in lava, you would quickly burn to death. But that's not the point. The point is that this scene ends with Obi-Wan Kenobi jumping off of one of the lava rafts and onto a gently sloping hill. And then he turns back to Anakin, who's still floating on the lava, and says, "It's over. I have the higher ground." The fact that Obi-Wan Kenobi is slightly elevated over Anakin is supposed to somehow mean that he automatically wins the fight. Except that Anakin just 5 seconds earlier had leapt like 30 feet in the air with effortless ease. So even if the higher ground is decisive, he could easily just jump higher than Obi-Wan Kenobi was standing. Or he could walk up the hill and continue fighting. This is a wide hill. Anakin could jump to any spot on the hill where his opponent is not standing. Or he could float down a ways and jump onto a different hill and then continue the fight. There is no reason why Obi-Wan Kenobi standing on a hill should have ended the fight, unless Anakin did the one thing he decided to do, which was to jump directly over Obi-Wan's head so he could just casually reach up and cut his legs off. And that's how it ends. That's the whole sequence with Anakin just presenting his legs to be cut off. Here you go. It made no sense. Also, there's this problem. This is the last thing. The whole reason that Anakin turns to the dark side is because he had his visions that his wife, Padme, was going to die. Ovaltine promises him that if he goes to the dark side, he can stop his wife from dying. And then, which by the way, is not a bad concept. Like that idea is not a bad idea. And then right before the final battle, Anakin seemingly chokes her to death himself. And this could work in a tragic sense. He turned to the dark side to save his wife, but then he ended up killing her. Except the problem is that for some reason, we learn in the next scene that he didn't kill his wife. The doctors tell us that his wife did not sustain any physical damage at all, yet she was still dying of a broken heart or something. So rather than having the tragic ending of Anakin killing the woman who he was supposedly trying to protect, for some reason, Lucas pulls the punch so that the whole choking incident was irrelevant. And now we have Padme giving up on life because her lame goth boyfriend turned evil. So instead of her dying a tragic death, she turns out to be a selfish coward who's not motivated to live for the two children she just gave birth to. And then we cut to the next scene where Darth Vader finds out that Padme died and then throws his hands in the air and shouts, "No." More atrocious writing from George Lucas. I mean, there were dozens of potentially profound and interesting ways to have this character respond to this news. Instead, Lucas beats you over the head with the cliche sledgehammer, literally having a character throw his arms in the air and shout "no." I've never seen anyone do that in real life ever. It just doesn't happen. So anyway, the point is, at this point, the promise that Ovaltine made to Vader has been revealed to be a lie. So why does Vader stay loyal to him? There's no reason. The entire narrative motivation for this character's transformation was yanked away at the last minute. And there's no attempt to deal with that problem at all. So the acting is bad, the script is bad, the action's bad, the story's bad. What can this movie hang its hat on? We can't even give it marks for tone, because tonally the film's also a disaster. It's written and acted like a campy, cheesy comedy. It has old guys doing backflips with laser swords. But at the same time, George Lucas wants it to be like this dark operatic masterpiece. He even has Anakin slaughter a whole room full of children. No, I have no issue with your villain doing something heinous, but you can't have a campy, cheesy movie that's also dark and also features the mass murder of kids. Like, all of those notes together make not for a symphony, but for a hodgepodge of noise. If anything, it sounds more like the orchestra warming their instruments up before the performance, which is maybe the best analogy for this film, because despite being one of the worst movies ever made, it does maybe have the potential to have been pretty good. It has some good ideas, at least. It just needed a new script, different actors, and a better director. So maybe it didn't have potential after all. Anyway, my kids liked it, so. But still, Revenge of the Sith is today canceled. along with this entire Star Wars franchise, needless to say. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.